How do soldiers handle the grisly sights that war creates? Jennifer Johansson. My father didn't talk much about his World War II experiences. He joined the Navy right at the end of the conflict. He served in the engine rooms of 3 different destroyers. He told me that on his off time, he and his mates would often walk the deck for the fresh air. During patrol, his ship was assigned to be followers of aircraft carriers, specifically to try and retrieve the pilots who didn't make a safe landing on the bird farm. Destroyers were good for this, because they were quick and maneuverable. Either the plane was damaged, or the sea was too rough, but whatever the reason, a good number of men couldn't get their aircraft down onto the carrier's deck, and they and their machine were left behind as the carrier kept on cruising. It was up to the destroyer behind to pick up the airmen. I asked my father how often they were successful. He took a lot of pauses before he could answer. He first said, "You have to realize that because of safety in traveling with a fleet, ships were most often a mile or 2 apart." He paused a little bit more. "Sometimes we did, but most times, we couldn't get to the men in time." "Really?" I asked. "Well, what happened to them?" A bit longer pause. "They were either too torn up from the impact with the ship or the water, or they couldn't get out and sank with the plane. Or the sharks got to them first." My father also was part of the thousands of men who were subjects in the Bikini Atoll atomic bomb tests. He could tell about how one test was an air blast and one was an underwater blast, but he didn't say much about what he saw personally. We do have Navy-authorized pictures of the 2 bombs. You've probably seen them online, too. What he did say was that he and the men were put on a different ship several miles away from the epicenter, but his empty ship was actually much closer in, used to gauge how far away the damage would be. The Navy checked his ship for radiation before allowing the crew back on, but they didn't think to check the seawater. When the steam engines were started back up and the seawater circulating systems were turned on, the men themselves got radiated. Dad said that even though they were taken off pretty quickly, all the guys' hair fell out, their teeth loosened up, and they developed bruises all over. His shipmates and he were scheduled to be on liberty at Pearl Harbor after that, but were kept at sea for a month until their hair grew back. The Navy didn't want what had happened to get out. Dad also spoke about one time after VJ Day that some renegade Japanese holdout on a tiny island sent a shot across the bow of their ship as they were cruising on patrol. He said the ship let loose with everything they had. The crew were then allowed to go ashore on that island. My father laughed, but very uncharacteristically in a kind of nervous and covering way, and said, "You could see ears and fingers and pieces of this and that. There wasn't anything left to be called human." Yes, those black shapes around and in the stem of the mushroom cloud are ships. Sheesh. One of the 3 ships Dad was on. Dad's last name here is Johnson, not yet Johansson, because his father was forced to Americanize his name to Johnson when he emigrated from Sweden to the US as a teenager. They got to change the family name back after Dad's father was naturalized. This is the ship that was used at Bikini Atoll. Here's a blurb I found about it. Update: I was asked by a commenter if, after writing this, Do I have a greater appreciation for my father? I answered him that, while I had a great appreciation for my father, the honor given him by so many in this thread has swelled my heart with greater respect and love. Thank you, Quarans. 127.3K views. View 3,184 upvotes.